This is Chapter 3, Unit 2, Part 2. We're going to be talking about the weighted mean. At times it is necessary to combine two sets of scores and then find the overall mean for the combined group. For example, say you taught a section of math and you had a mean of like 15 for the first sample, and then your second class you taught had a mean of 12. Well, you wanted to know the combined mean for the whole group of both classes that you taught. This is called a weighted mean because the new combined mean will be closer to the mean of the data set with the larger sample. So say there was 15 people in sample 1 and 10 people in sample 2. Well, the new weighted mean would be closer to the original mean of sample 1 because there's more people in sample 1. So step 1, you determine the combined sum of all the scores, which we call summation of x. Step 2, you determine the combined number of scores, which we call n. And then you just find the mean, basically by dividing the sum of the scores by the total number of scores. So here's your equation. Mean is equal to summation of x for sample 1 plus summation of x for sample 2 over n1 plus n2. And you could actually use this for an unlimited groups of scores you were going to combine. If you were going to combine 3 sets, you'd follow the same equation, but you'd add a plus summation x3 on the top and you add a plus n3 on the bottom. So here's an example. If two samples are combined, what is the mean for the total group? So for sample 1, you're told that the n is equal to 12 and the mean is 6. For sample 2, n equals 8 and mean equals 7. Well, notice in your equation that you have to find summation of x for sample 1 and for sample 2. Okay, so let's start by finding summation of x for sample 1. You're going to use the regular mean equation that we know. Mean is equal to summation of x over n. We've been using that for a sample. So for sample 1, if you use that equation and plug in what we know for the mean and what we know for n, we would get summation of x equal to 6 times 12, which is 72. Use the same exact equation for sample 2 to find summation of x, and you'll find summation of x is equal to 8 times 7, which is equal to 56. And then finally, you're going to combine everything to find the combined mean. So again, you're given the original equation. You substitute in what you found. For summation of x1, you found 72. For summation of x2, you found 56. For n1, you were given 12. For n2, you were given 8. Add the top of the fraction to get 128. Add the bottom of the fraction to get 20. And then you finally divide. You get 6.4. So here's a nice table to put your data into. Notice the first sample, here's all the information you need. The second sample, the information you need. And then the combined sample, how it was obtained. One thing that I want you to notice is that the new combined mean will be closer to the mean of sample 1 because there are more people in sample 1. Notice there's 12 people in sample 1 and only 8 people in sample 2. So let's look and see what we found. 6.4 is definitely closer to the mean in sample 1. It had a mean of 6 than it is to the mean of sample 2, which is 7. All right, your turn to practice. Pause the video and see what you can do. Okay, step 1, find summation of x for sample 1 and sample 2. Use the mean equation. So sample 1 would give you 8 times 4 equals 32. Sample 2, 5 times 8 equals 40. And then find the combined mean. Plug in summation of x1, summation x2, n1, and n2, and then divide, and you would get 6. And again, here's a nice table to put all your work into. And the new combined mean should be closer to the mean of sample 2 because there are more people in sample 2 in this problem. And so let's look at our answer. We got 6. It's definitely closer to the mean of 5 from sample 2 than to the mean of 8 from sample 1. All right, let's talk about computing a mean from a frequency table. Remember that for a frequency table, summation of x is really summation of fx column. And remember, for a frequency table, n is actually the summation of the f column. So here's your table. You should have your quiz scores, your F and your FX. And in order to find summation of X, you add up the frequency column. You should have gotten summation of F, which is N, is equal to 8. And then adding up the FX column, you should have gotten summation of FX is equal to 66. And then to find the mean, it's the same equation we've always used, summation of X divided by N. Well, the summation of X for this frequency table is 66. N is 8, so 66 divided by 8 would give you 8.25 for the mean of this frequency table. All right, learning check problem 1. Pause the video and see if you can solve the problem. Okay, a sample of 12 scores has a mean of 8. What's the value of summation of X? Again, you're just using mean equals summation X over N. Plug in what you know 8, you know 12. So summation of X is 8 times 12, which is 96. Learning check problem 2. Pause the video and work the problem. Okay, so if you'd made a little table, filled in for N what you know, N for sample 1 is 4, N for sample 2 is 10, and the total N would be 14. For summation of X, you would do N times the mean. So 4 times 10 would give you 40, 10 times 20 would give you 200. And you could still use the equations that we've used before, where you fill in for M and you fill in for N. So you would have ended up with sample 1, 10 equals summation X over 4, and then you would just multiply 10 times 4. I was just kind of skipping that step here. If you realize that's how it works, that summation of X is equal to N times N, you can go ahead and just fill out your table like this. And finally, the total of summation of X would be 240 because I'd add the summation X from sample 1, summation of X from sample 2. And then the combined mean would be the total of all the summation of X's, which is 240, over the total of all the N's, which is 14, would have given you 17.1. Here's your final learning check problem. For the following frequency distribution table, what are the values for summation of X, N, and M? Pause the video while you work your problem. So remember, for frequency table, summation of X is equal to summation of the XF column, and N is equal to summation of F. So make your column, make a F of X column, multiply across to find F times X for each row. So 4 times 1 would be 4 for row 1, 3 times 2 would be 6 for row 2, and so on. And then you're going to do your summations. You're going to sum up the F column to get N equals 10, and you're going to sum up the FX column to get summation of X equal to 20. Finally, you're going to use your mean equation, which is summation of X over N, and put in 20 divided by 10 and get 2 for a mean.